the rising star in the Hispanic and conservative movement, Senator Marco Rubio.
His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm excited you're all here in Tampa and in my home state, and I see some familiar faces here that are from Florida, so welcome, and thank you guys for having me this afternoon. Whatever, you know what I mean. So anyway, it's great to be here with you guys. Es un placer estar con ustedes. I'd like to say a few words in English and Spanish, if that's okay with you. Of all the crowds, this is probably the one I should say as much in both, but I'd really, first of all, I'm just a big admirer of what HLN is doing in terms of explaining the position of limited government, free enterprise, and the appeal that it should have to all Americans. But I think there's no community in America that understands the free enterprise system better than the Hispanic community. Latinos in America are as entrepreneurial as any community in the country. You drive down any city in this country where there is a significant community of Hispanics, and you will find entrepreneurship up and down the street. In small businesses of every shape and size, some become big businesses. It amazes me everywhere I go in the country. I was in Reno about a week ago, driving through a neighborhood. 4 out of the first 6 businesses that I saw had Hispanic names on them, telling me that they were Hispanic owned and operated. And I think that's a great testament, because the truth is that the reason why all of us have come here, whether we came or our parents came or our grandparents came or even our great-grandparents came, is in pursuit of a better life for themselves, and more importantly, for the ability to leave their children better off than themselves, to give their kids the chance to do the things that they didn't have a chance to do, for whatever reason, whether it was political reasons, economic reasons, or both. There is no economic system in the world where that's possible more than the American free enterprise system. There is no economic system in the world where those dreams have a better chance than under the American free enterprise system. Does that mean that government doesn't have a role? Of course it has a role. It has an important role. We shouldn't be anti-government. Government is an important institution in our society. And at every level, whether it's at the state level through education or at the federal level through national security and tax policy, government is important. But it cannot be and should not be our most important institution. And we have to understand that the role the government should play is to create the conditions where we incentivize the investment of money and the creation of new businesses and the expansion of existing businesses. Because in the end, that's what it takes to grow the economy and to create the jobs that people need, all Americans, including Latinos. What we need is an economy where people that have access to money, whether they're borrowing it or whether it's theirs, and have the confidence to take that money and invest it, to start a new business or to grow an existing business. Because if it works, they hire people who then make their own money and turn around and spend it into the economy, creating jobs and opportunities for others. And what we need from government is a series of predictable rules and regulations and tax policy that give people the incentive to do just that. That cycle of investment is the cycle of prosperity. And we live it every single day in the Hispanic community. And that's why I think the limited government movement, the movement that defends free enterprise, has such an extraordinary opportunity to really make that pitch and to do that outreach to all Americans, but especially those from minority communities and especially those from the growing Hispanic community all across this country. Now, as I've told Republicans, I invariably get asked about this question. Immigration is linked to this, obviously for 2 reasons. One, because the existing legal immigration system is broken. It hurts economic growth. If you go to Silicon Valley, if you go to the high-tech companies in America, if you go to many of the small business entities in America, one of the first 2 or 3 things they'll talk to you about is immigration policy. Not from the point of view that you may think. They're talking about it from an economic point of view, from a job creation point of view, from an entrepreneurial point of view, from a workforce point of view. By the way, you'll get the same conversation in the agricultural industry and in the tourism industry as well. Now, it's important when we talk about immigration to remind everybody that America is still extraordinarily generous when it comes to immigration, and we should start there. 1 million people a year, 1 million people a year legally and permanently immigrate to the United States every single year. There's no other country that even comes close. There isn't even a close second. I think in some years, that's been 3 times as much as the next country in line. 1 million people a year legally immigrate to the United States. Millions of others are waiting to legally immigrate into the United States. I know, they come to our offices. They've been waiting 7 years, 9 years, 14 years. And so we need to begin by reminding people of that. Then we need to recognize that our legal immigration system is broken. Not only is it hurting our economy, but it's incentivizing illegal immigration, because it's basically gotten to the point where it's impossible in some instances to legally immigrate here in some cases because of how complicated and burdensome and expensive that process has become. Another thing that we don't talk enough about, and I don't know what percentage of the problem it represents, but we see it a lot, is the amount of people being taken advantage of. There are a lot of people in this country that are undocumented because someone lied to them, because they told them they were a lawyer or a notary or some special category that was going to help them do their paperwork. And then the person took off with their money. I did a TV program about 2 months ago when I was doing the book promotion, and the cameraman came up to me afterwards and said his wife was going to get deported in about 2 weeks because she gave $4,000 to a guy who said he was a lawyer, and the guy never did anything. Her visa expired. This is not as uncommon as we may think it is. That needs to be addressed as well. By the same token, if we had a workable guest worker program, a lot of folks would not be here undocumented. They want to go home every year and come back next year when their labor is needed again, but there's no workable program for them to do that through. That encourages illegal immigration as well. So I do think we have to begin to address all of those things. And the challenge that I have posed to my friends in the conservative movement and in the Republican Party is we can't simply be the anti-illegal immigration group. We have to become the pro-legal immigration group. We have to become defenders of legal immigration and what that means for America and its future. Of course, the elephant in the room, no pun intended, is what to do with 10, 12, 11, 9, whatever the number is, of human beings who are in this country and they're undocumented. I think we start by admitting what we're not going to do. We're not going to grant amnesty to 12 million people, and we're not going to round up and deport 12 million people. Neither of those two things are going to happen. Somewhere between those two elements, between those two views, lies a solution to this problem that is a balance between our heritage as a nation of immigrants, but also our heritage as a nation of laws. Somewhere between those two positions is a balanced and reasonable approach that deals with this problem in a humanitarian way that acknowledges that America has always welcomed people to this country who are fleeing oppression and difficult circumstances, but also recognizes that we can't be the only country in the world that doesn't have immigration laws and that doesn't enforce them. And I'm telling you, we will never get to that point. It's not easy. Anyone who tells you they have an easy solution, a 3-5 bullet point solution to this problem is not telling you the truth. There is no easy solution to this issue. Number one, because the cause of it is not easy. It's complex. There are a lot of people in this country that entered legally and their visas expired. There are others that may or may not be here legally, depending on how the law is interpreted. There are folks who have entered the country illegally. There are folks whose visas have expired because of the fraud that I've outlined. There are, of course, the children of people who came here when they were 3 years old. They don't even speak Spanish. And they're going to be deported back to a country where they don't even speak the language. They have never really lived there. It's a complex issue. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution to it. It's difficult to find the kind of measured approach that isn't amnesty, but also doesn't hurt our heritage of a nation of tremendous compassion. And the admission I've always made is I don't have the easy answer for it, but I can promise you this, we will never solve it as long as this issue is a political football. We will never solve it as long as both sides use this issue against each other in campaigns and to raise money. And it's a powerful issue. It's a powerful issue on both sides. It's a powerful issue on the left, where I've seen some outrageous comments made, but basically if you don't agree with their solutions on immigration, you're anti-immigrant and anti-Hispanic, and of course that's ridiculous. And we've heard comments from the right as well that disturb us. The point is, this issue needs to be depoliticized. It needs to be elevated outside of politics. Some people say, well, that's really a reach. How are you ever going to do that? There's no issue in America that's depoliticized. There's no issue in America we've been able to take out of politics. I'm telling you, as long as this one is a talking point that the parties use against each other, we will not find that approach that I think is the only way to solve it and to confront it. And that's the challenge that we have, is how can we present a reasonable approach that on the one hand is good for legal immigration and honors our history as a nation of immigrants, and at the same time understands that we have to have immigration laws that have to be enforced and followed, and that we can't do anything that encourages and rewards illegal immigration in the future. Just to tell you how complex it is, in one day in my office, you can meet with folks who are here undocumented because they entered when they were 4. You can meet with people that are undocumented because they overstayed their visas because they're afraid to go back to their country. You can meet with folks that are here undocumented because, quite frankly, they don't want to go back because of economic circumstances. You can meet with people whose family members are waiting. And you can't say to them, listen, tell your family members to come illegally because it's cheaper and quicker. That can't be our answer. It is complicated. It really is. And so I hope that we can find a solution, because while that may not be the number one issue in the Hispanic community, it is a gateway issue. Because in the Hispanic community, in the Latino community in this country, immigration is not a theoretical issue. It's not something that you read about in a newspaper. It's not a statistic. It's somebody that you know. And that's why you get the kind of results when they talk about it in polling that you do. Because on the one hand, the Hispanic community is not pro-illegal immigration. The Hispanic community is not pro-violating of our laws. On the other hand, we know somebody. You love somebody. Your kids go to school with somebody. You work with somebody. You know some human being, some person that you care for who is somehow being impacted either directly or indirectly by an immigration problem. And it's like any other problem you know about. One thing is when you read about it in the newspaper, and another thing is when you know someone in those circumstances. And that's where this issue really comes into play. And I think it would be unfortunate if somehow limited government conservatism becomes impossible to talk about or to advocate to an entire demographic group in America. Quite frankly, one of the demographic groups that should most understand it and most benefit from it. I think it would be tragic if somehow we are unable to make that argument because we can't get past this issue and solve it in a way that's good for our country and also good for the people who find themselves in these circumstances. So it's a tremendous challenge. I don't have all the easy answers, but I will work on it. We will continue to work on it. We were recently working and continue to work on a solution to the problem of the kids that are here undocumented, and we were making tremendous progress, and I look forward to being able to get something like that done, hopefully, under a new president and a majority Republican Congress. So thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.